Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to walk through 8 lessons that helped me go from suicidal to being depression-free for 16 years plus. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Hicks. I am a mental health coach and I help people overcome depression and anxiety. I didn't get great results with therapy, medication, and hospitalization like a lot of people don't. And I know that depression and anxiety are things that you're able to live a life without on a regular basis if you do the right things. And I want you to be able to have that luxury in your life. So these are things that took me from suicidal to depression-free. This is not like totally exhaustive, but I was just reflecting like what are the major lessons I've really learned? And these are the ones that stood out to me, so they may add value for you. The first one is that we feel pain not so much because of what happens to us, but because of what we make things mean. So, I remember at the time when I was really suicidal, I had a couple circumstances in my life that were really unpleasant. There were some things that were just bad. There were things that certain people were doing that were affecting me in an adverse way. But the problem I realize now is that I presumed that things would never get better. That was one of the meanings that I put on it. And I also put the meaning on it that things cannot get any worse. Right? So there were a lot of stories I was telling myself about my circumstances. And don't get me wrong, they weren't peachy circumstances. But the meaning I put on them was really what became a problem. Once I decided, like, I'm done with this depression thing, I started changing the stories that I was using. And I started to look for a different way to approach it. I started to look for like, okay, well, how will this benefit me eventually, even if it sucks right now? And that kind of got me going, and I started to, evolve from there. So that was one of the big things. The second big lesson I feel like I learned is that we always will feel depressed when we stop focusing on a vision of the future that we want, right? So, I've learned that it seems to be a universal human thing that we all have to have some vision of a future that we desire, that we can move towards. And as soon as we start making a vision of the future going badly or something, like imagining that there is no future for us, then that's what's going to make us feel really depressed or suicidal. So we have to constantly craft that vision. And what's kept me depression-free is I'm constantly having certain goals or things that I'm trying to pursue, certain things out in front of me that I'm going after. Number 3 lesson that I feel like I've learned is that everything changes and nothing is permanent. When I was suicidal, I was believing that, this will never change. I'll always be like this. They'll always be like this. My life will never get better, right? And I just presumed permanence. And now, I look back on that and think how silly that is, right? I mean, everything changes. Change is automatic, progress is optional, but if we guide ourselves towards a vision of what we want, we can actually make progress in our life. But no matter what you're dealing with, chances are it is going to be not permanent, in some way. Your circumstances are not going to be exactly the same, even if you did nothing about it, but especially if you take action, you certainly can change them. Number 4 lesson I feel like I learned was that just because I did something bad, that doesn't mean that I am bad. And I think that that's something that really is important for a lot of people to reflect on, right? We sometimes personify things, or we take it on as a part of our identity. We think that just because I lied or cheated or did this bad thing, that I am a bad person. And that's just not true, right? You have to be able to start to separate between who you are as an identity and what you've done as actions in the past. And that really has helped me a lot. 5th lesson is that, you're so much more than anything that has happened to you. And I really had to start to take this in. I started to realize, like, okay, yes, these bad things happened to me in the past. People have done things to me that have hurt me. This will continue to happen from time to time, right? The circumstances will change. The world is going to change. The economy is going to change, right? Sometimes there'll be a global pandemic every so often, things of that nature. But no matter what, I as an identity, and same thing, you as your identity, right? You are able to persist. You are able to endure. You are able to go through all of the things that you've already gone through. So you're so much more than what's these temporary little moments that have happened to you. And what I was doing is I was overly identifying with a bad event in the past as defining who I am. And that will lead to feeling depressed, I have found time and time again. So if you can realize, like, yeah, that bad thing happened to me in the past, but I am, who I am now in the present and in the future, then that will alleviate depression. Sixth lesson I learned was that what other people did or said that hurt you was really because they were in pain, not because there was something wrong with you or you did something wrong necessarily. This is probably true in my experience, maybe 9 times out of 10, right? I think about the people in my life who were causing me a lot of pain before. And when I really think about it from a different angle, I can see that they were just feeling insecure or scared. The assumption I made back then, especially when I was a kid, was there's something wrong with me. And that's probably one of the most depression-inducing thoughts that there is. So I think being able to recognize that there are really 2 types of communication, either a loving response or a cry for help, right? And when people are being angry or vicious or vindictive, it's really because there's some pain going on inside of them that's being projected out. So that has helped me immensely to not feel depressed. 7 lesson I feel like I've learned is that, we can only feel depressed when we're focused more on our own pain than on alleviating the pain of others. And, we can't really be of service to other people when we're overly focused on our own pain. We can take the fact that we were in pain in the past as a way to empathize with people in the present and serve them. But if we make the whole story, if we make the whole thing about us, then we feel depressed. Like, I'm kind of a superhero geek, and I remember this scene from Doctor Strange when he's talking with the Ancient One, and the Ancient One says to him, you still haven't gotten the most important and simple lesson of all. And he says, what is that? And she says, it's not about you. And I think that that's one of the big lessons that I've learned anyway, that's really helped me get depression out of my life, is it's not about me. When I make life about me, the more depressed I feel. Then when I make it about other people and trying to help other people, then life gets a whole lot better. And then the 8th lesson I feel like I've learned, this is a huge one that has helped me tremendously, is that the brain is very, very trainable. But no one is going to train the brain for you, right? You can't just hope that your circumstances change. You can't just hope to think more positively. You can't just hope that you're going to start feeling better one day, or that by taking time off work, you're somehow, going to come around. Sometimes it happens like that, but very rarely, right? Especially if you're feeling depressed at a high level. So when I realized that I could train my brain, and that it was on me to figure out how to do it, and that I had to get the answers and get the guidance and do what I needed to do to make that happen, then that started turning my entire life around. And I think that it can do the same for you. Every time I've seen my clients take that ownership and say, oh, I can change how I think, I can change how I feel, and then they take the guidance and things, then all of a sudden the whole world changes. Because when we presume I can't change, then it doesn't really matter, whether we can change or not. We're just not going to do, what we can to make that happen. So these have been big lessons that have helped me. I know they've helped my clients. I hope that they help you. And again, you don't have to do this alone. If you're feeling depressed right now, you don't have to do it alone. It can absolutely get better. You're not destined to feel like this for the rest of your life, but you do have to take responsibility. You have to do something different. You have to take some new action to get different results. So anyway, hope that this is really helpful to you, and hopefully I get to serve you again here soon.